Most American families quietly throw away hundreds of dollars worth of food every single year and have no idea it's happening. While that waste piles up, there are communities scattered across Pennsylvania, Indiana, and Ohio where almost nothing gets discarded. Amish families have been feeding themselves through brutal winters, failed harvests, and tight economic times for over 3 centuries. Their methods are not complicated. They do not depend on electricity, expensive gear, or products you order online. They depend on knowledge. Simple, repeatable, time-tested knowledge that most of the modern world has completely forgotten. Today, we are going to walk through 20 fermented and preserved foods that Amish homesteaders depend on year after year. Every single one of them can be started in your own kitchen this week, even if you have never touched a mason jar in your life. And a few of these are going to genuinely surprise you, especially number 17. That one could change how your entire household handles the winter months. Let's get into it. Number 1. Sauerkraut, the beginner's foundation. If you only ever learn one fermentation technique, make it this one. Sauerkraut is the entry point for a reason. 2 ingredients, cabbage, salt. That is the entire recipe. Amish families have been making it this way across generations, and the process has not changed because it does not need to. Take 1 medium head of cabbage, roughly 2 pounds or around 900 grams. Pull off the outer leaves and set one aside. Slice the rest into thin ribbons. Toss the cabbage with 1 teaspoon of non-iodized sea salt, about 18 grams, and spend 5 minutes massaging it firmly with your hands. You will feel it soften and start releasing its own liquid. That liquid is your brine. Pack the cabbage tightly into a wide-mouth quart mason jar. Press it down hard so the brine rises above the leaves. Lay that reserved outer leaf on top like a natural lid. Cap the jar loosely so gases can escape. Set it somewhere away from direct sun. Over the next 3 to 7 days, something remarkable is going to happen inside that jar, and you do not have to do anything except burp it once a day. Lactobacillus bacteria that live naturally on the cabbage do the fermentation work for you. What you end up with is a living, probiotic-rich food that many naturopathic practitioners consider one of the most effective daily supports for digestion and immune function. Not a supplement, not a pill, just cabbage and salt. Here's the math. 1 head of cabbage costs about $1.50. A jar of organic sauerkraut at most grocery stores runs $6 to $8. You do that math every week, and it adds up fast. Number 2. Sourdough starter, the household that never runs out of bread. In Amish communities, sourdough starters are treated like family heirlooms. Some of them have been kept alive and passed down for over 100 years in Lancaster County alone. The reason is practical. A living starter means you never have to buy commercial yeast again, ever. To build your own, combine half a cup, about 60 grams of unbleached organic flour with a quarter cup, around 60 milliliters of filtered water in a clean glass jar. Stir it until smooth, cover loosely, and leave it on the counter. Every single day for the next 5 to 7 days, discard half and feed it with the same ratio of flour and water. Around day 5 or 6, something clicks. The mixture starts doubling in size within 4 to 6 hours of each feeding. That is when you know it's alive. From that point on, your starter can leaven bread, pancakes, pizza dough, flatbreads, and muffins. Amish bakers keep it in a cool pantry or root cellar between bakes and feed it once a week. It becomes a permanent fixture in the kitchen. What's also worth knowing is that genuine sourdough fermentation breaks down gluten and phytic acid during the process, making the bread significantly easier to digest than anything sitting on a grocery store shelf. Number 3. Fermented dill pickles. Not what you think. Most people have never eaten a real fermented pickle. The jars in the grocery aisle, those are cucumbers sitting in vinegar brine, completely different food. Amish fermented pickles are alive, full of active cultures and a depth of flavor that vinegar cannot produce. Start with fresh, firm pickling cucumbers. Smaller ones work best. Pack them into a half-gallon mason jar alongside 4 cloves of garlic, 2 heads of fresh dill, 1 teaspoon of mustard seed, and a pinch of red pepper flakes if you want a little heat. Make a brine by dissolving 2 tablespoons, about 36 grams, of sea salt into 4 cups of filtered water. Pour it over the cucumbers until they are fully submerged. Cover the jar loosely and ferment at room temperature for 3 to 7 days, depending on how tangy you want them. Then move them to cold storage. In an Amish root cellar, they would sit through the entire winter. In your kitchen, the refrigerator works perfectly. These pickles are probiotic-rich in a way no vinegar product can match. A batch costs just a few dollars and produces something you would pay $15 or more for at a farmer's market. Number 4. Water bath canned tomatoes, the harvest backbone. Ask almost any Amish homesteader what fills their shelves in autumn, and the answer is the same every time: tomatoes. Whole tomatoes, crushed tomatoes, sauce and salsa. Tomatoes are naturally acidic, which makes them safe for water bath canning. No pressure canner required. That makes them the most accessible canning project for beginners. The method is straightforward. Blanch ripe tomatoes in boiling water for 60 seconds and transfer them straight into cold water. The skins slip off on their own. Pack the peeled tomatoes into sterilized quart jars. Add 2 tablespoons of bottled lemon juice per quart for safe acidity and 1 teaspoon of salt. Process in a boiling water bath for 45 minutes. When those lids cool and seal with a satisfying pop, those jars are shelf-stable for 12 to 18 months. No refrigeration, no power needed. 1 bushel of tomatoes, about 53 pounds, yields 15 to 20 quart jars. At peak harvest prices, that can mean a full year's supply of tomatoes for $30 to $40. Number 5. Apple cider vinegar, made from scraps. Amish kitchens operate on a principle that most households have abandoned: nothing gets wasted. Apple cider vinegar is the perfect example. During canning season, apple peels and cores pile up, and instead of throwing them away, they get turned into one of the most useful things you can keep in a home. Fill a wide-mouthed quart jar about 3/4 full with apple scraps. Dissolve 1 tablespoon of raw cane sugar in 2 cups of filtered water and pour it over the scraps until they're submerged. Cover the jar with a cloth or coffee filter secured with a rubber band. Set it somewhere dark and warm. Stir it daily for about 2 weeks. After straining out the solids, cover the jar again and leave it for another 2 to 4 weeks. What develops is raw, unpasteurized apple cider vinegar, complete with the beneficial mother culture. In both Amish tradition and naturopathic practice, a daily tablespoon of raw apple cider vinegar in warm water is considered a tonic for digestion and overall vitality. It also works as an all-purpose household cleaner and a natural pest deterrent in the garden. Made from scraps that would otherwise go in the compost bin, it costs almost nothing. Number 6. Amish-style beef jerky, dried and done right. Long before dehydrators existed, Amish families preserved meat by slicing it thin and drying it slowly over low heat. Many still use wood-heated box dryers today. You can get the same result with a modern dehydrator or an oven set to its lowest temperature. Use 2 pounds, around 900 grams, of lean beef. Top round or eye of round work well. Slice it against the grain into strips about 1/8 of an inch thick. For the marinade, combine a 1/4 cup of soy sauce or liquid aminos, 2 tablespoons of raw honey, 1 teaspoon each of garlic powder, onion powder, and black pepper, and half a teaspoon of smoked paprika. Marinate the strips for at least 6 hours. Overnight is better. Arrange them on dehydrator trays or oven racks and dry at 155 degrees Fahrenheit for 4 to 6 hours until the jerky bends and cracks but does not snap clean. Stored in airtight containers, homemade jerky lasts 1 to 2 months at room temperature or up to 6 months in cold storage. Store-bought jerky runs $12 to $15 a bag. Homemade is a fraction of that cost and contains nothing artificial. Number 7. Fermented hot sauce, fire with benefits. This one tends to surprise people. Amish communities, particularly those with German and Eastern European roots, have a history of fermenting peppers, and the result is a hot sauce that is in an entirely different category from the vinegar-based bottles at the grocery store. Choose your peppers based on heat preference. Fresno, jalapeno, or cayenne all work beautifully. Remove the stems and roughly chop about 2 cups of peppers. Add 4 to 5 cloves of garlic and pack everything into a pint mason jar. Make a brine with 1 tablespoon of sea salt per cup of filtered water and pour it over the peppers until submerged. Ferment at room temperature for 5 to 7 days. Once fermented, blend the peppers along with their brine into a smooth sauce. Add a splash of apple cider vinegar for brightness and balance. Bottle and refrigerate. The flavor is layered and complex in a way that plain vinegar hot sauce never achieves, and every drop is loaded with live cultures. A batch costs almost nothing and lasts for months. Pressure canned chicken broth, liquid gold on the shelf. In an Amish household, a whole chicken becomes at least 2 or 3 meals. The meat feeds the family, and the bones go straight into a pot with water, onion, celery, carrot, garlic, and herbs for a long, slow simmer. What comes out is a rich, mineral-dense broth that becomes the foundation for dozens of other dishes. To pressure can the broth, ladle the hot, strained liquid into sterilized quart jars, leaving 1 inch of headspace. Process at 10 pounds of pressure for 25 minutes for quarts. Adjust for altitude as needed. The result is a shelf-stable product you can store for over a year. On a cold winter evening, having a quart of homemade bone broth on the shelf is one of those small things that makes a home feel genuinely prepared. Nutritionally, slow-simmered bone broth is rich in collagen, gelatin, and minerals. Many health practitioners recommend it as a foundational food for joint health and gut lining support. Number 9. Strawberry jam, the summer harvest in a jar. Amish households make jam when the fruit is at its peak and cheapest. Strawberry jam is a staple. The method is simple, and the results are nothing like the corn syrup-loaded jars at the store. Combine 4 cups of crushed fresh strawberries, about 600 grams, with 3 cups of sugar and the juice of 1 lemon in a heavy saucepan. Stir over medium-high heat until the sugar dissolves completely. Then increase the heat and bring it to a hard boil, stirring constantly. After about 10 to 15 minutes, test for set by placing a small amount on a chilled plate. If it wrinkles when you push it, it is ready. Ladle into half-pint jars and process in a water bath for 10 minutes. 1 flat of strawberries produces enough jam to last a family through most of the year. At peak season prices, a flat costs around $20. The same amount of quality jam at a grocery store would run $60 or more. Number 10. Kimchi, the ferment that crossed cultures. Amish communities are mostly associated with German preservation traditions, but the fermentation principles they use are universal. Kimchi is one of the most powerful fermented vegetables in existence, and it follows the exact same lactic acid fermentation process that makes sauerkraut work. Many modern homesteaders in and around Amish-influenced communities have adopted it enthusiastically. Quarter a medium napa cabbage and toss it with 2 tablespoons of sea salt. Let it sit for 1 to 2 hours until it softens and releases its liquid. Rinse and drain it well. Combine 1 tablespoon of fish sauce or soy sauce, 3 tablespoons of Korean red pepper flakes, gochugaru, 4 minced garlic cloves, 1 teaspoon of fresh grated ginger, and 1 teaspoon of sugar to make the paste. Toss the cabbage thoroughly with the paste and a few sliced green onions. Pack everything tightly into a quart mason jar. Ferment at room temperature for 1 to 5 days, pressing down daily to keep the cabbage submerged. Then move to cold storage. The probiotic diversity in well-made kimchi rivals almost any fermented food on the planet. Gut health researchers consistently point to traditional fermented vegetables as among the most effective natural sources of beneficial bacteria. Number 11. Dried herbs for health and cooking. In Amish homes, the garden and the medicine cabinet are not separate things. They are the same thing. Herbs like thyme, oregano, chamomile, lemon balm, peppermint, lavender, and elderflower are grown, harvested, and dried for use throughout the year, both in cooking and in natural remedies. The drying process could not be simpler. Gather fresh herb bundles, Tie them loosely with twine and hang them upside down in a warm, dry, well-ventilated spot away from direct sunlight. In 2 to 4 weeks, they're fully dried and ready to be stripped from the stems and stored in glass jars. Dried properly, most culinary herbs retain their potency for 1 to 2 years. Medicinal herbs like chamomile for calming, peppermint for digestion, and elderflower for immune support are made into teas, tinctures, and poultices. Many naturopathic practitioners regard these herbs as genuinely effective, gentle supports for everyday health, and growing and drying your own is essentially free. Number 12. Salt-cured pork belly, the original bacon. Before refrigeration existed, salt was the technology that kept meat safe. Amish families still use this method, and the result is a deeply flavored cured pork that is shelf-stable without any electricity at all. Start with a fresh pork belly slab, about 2 to 3 pounds. Combine a 1/4 cup of non-iodized sea salt with 2 tablespoons of raw sugar, 1 teaspoon of black pepper, and optional aromatics like rosemary, thyme, or garlic powder. Rub the mixture thoroughly over every surface of the pork belly. Place it in a glass dish or sealed bag in the refrigerator. Over the next 7 days, the salt draws moisture from the meat and creates a preservation environment that prevents spoilage. Turn the pork once a day. After a week, rinse off the cure, pat dry, and it is ready to use. Slice it thin for pan frying, cube it for beans or soups, or smoke it over hardwood for something extraordinary. The flavor of properly cured pork is richer and deeper than anything sold in a grocery store. Number 13. Kombucha, the living tea. Kombucha has become trendy in recent years, but Amish homesteaders, particularly those in communities with connections to older European traditions, have been brewing fermented teas for a long time. The basic concept is ancient. Sweet tea inoculated with a SCOBY, a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast, ferments over 1 to 2 weeks into a lightly carbonated, tangy, probiotic-rich drink. Brew 2 quarts of strong black tea. While hot, dissolve 1 cup of white sugar into it and let it cool to room temperature. Pour it into a clean, wide-mouthed gallon jar and add 2 cups of starter kombucha from a previous batch or from a store-bought, raw, unflavored bottle. Gently place your SCOBY on top, cover with a clean cloth, and secure it with a rubber band. After 7 to 14 days, taste it. When the balance of sweet and tart suits you, bottle it. Add fruit juice or ginger to the bottles for a second ferment that creates natural carbonation. Store-bought kombucha runs $4 to $6 a bottle. Homemade costs pennies per serving. Many practitioners of functional medicine consider kombucha a valuable daily beverage for supporting gut microbiome health and liver function. Number 14. Elderberry syrup, the forgotten remedy. This is the one most people have completely forgotten about, and it should not be forgotten. Elderberry syrup has been used in traditional Amish and European herbalism for centuries as a seasonal immune support. Modern research increasingly validates what homesteaders have known for generations, that elderberries contain powerful antioxidants and compounds believed to support immune defense. Combine 1 cup, about 90 grams of dried elderberries, with 3 cups of water, 1 cinnamon stick, 3 whole cloves, and 1 teaspoon of fresh grated ginger in a saucepan. Bring to a boil, then reduce to a gentle simmer for 45 minutes until the liquid reduces by roughly half. Let it cool, then strain out the berries. When the syrup is close to room temperature, never hot, stir in 1 cup of raw honey. The heat would destroy the beneficial enzymes in the honey. Bottle and refrigerate. A tablespoon a day through the cold months is a common practice. This syrup keeps for 2 to 3 months in the refrigerator. A batch costs a fraction of what commercial elderberry products sell for, and it contains nothing but wholesome, recognizable ingredients. Number 15. Fermented salsa, fresh flavors that last. Fermented salsa might sound like an unusual idea, but the Amish tradition of lacto-fermenting vegetables extends far beyond cabbage and cucumbers. The fermentation process transforms fresh tomato salsa into a living condiment that tastes brighter and more complex than anything jarred at a factory. Dice 2 cups of fresh ripe tomatoes and combine with half a cup each of diced white onion and diced bell pepper. Add 1 seeded and minced jalapeno, 3 cloves of minced garlic, a quarter cup of fresh cilantro, the juice of 2 limes, and 1½ teaspoons of sea salt. Toss everything together and pack into a quart mason jar, pressing it down firmly so the juices rise. Make sure the vegetables stay submerged under their own liquid. If needed, add a small splash of saltwater brine. Cover loosely or use a fermentation lid and let it sit at room temperature for 2 to 3 days. The result is a living probiotic salsa with layers of flavor that commercial products cannot replicate. It keeps in the refrigerator for several weeks, though most families go through it far faster than that. Number 16. Canned apple butter, the all-day simmer. Apple butter is one of the most iconic foods in Amish culinary tradition. In many communities, making it is a communal event. Families gathering around large copper kettles, simmering outdoors over open fires, stirring and talking for hours. The slow caramelization of apples over that kind of gentle, extended heat creates something genuinely special. At home, a slow cooker replicates the process beautifully. Core and quarter about 6 pounds, roughly 2½ kilograms of apples, no peeling needed. Place them in the slow cooker with 2 cups of sugar, you can reduce this or substitute honey, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, half a teaspoon of nutmeg, a quarter teaspoon of ground cloves, and a quarter cup of apple cider vinegar. Cook on low with the lid propped slightly open for 10 to 12 hours, stirring a few times throughout. The apples will break down completely into a thick, dark, deeply fragrant spread. Use an immersion blender to smooth it out. Ladle into sterilized half-pint jars and process in a boiling water bath for 10 minutes. A batch produces 10 to 12 jars and costs roughly the same as a single jar from a specialty market. Spread on fresh sourdough bread, it is one of the genuinely great simple pleasures of homestead life. Number 17. Fermented garlic honey, the winter wellness secret. Here is the one that could genuinely change how your household handles cold and flu season. Fermented garlic honey is one of the simplest and most quietly powerful preparations in Amish natural medicine tradition, and almost nobody outside of homesteading circles knows about it. Peel 1 entire head of garlic, roughly 8 to 12 cloves, and give each clove a light crush with the flat side of your knife. Place the crushed cloves into a small mason jar and pour enough raw, unfiltered honey over them to completely submerge every clove. Stir gently, cap the jar loosely, and leave it at room temperature. Over the following weeks, the garlic undergoes a slow fermentation within the honey. You will notice small bubbles forming gradually. That is the process working. Flip the jar or give it a gentle stir every day or two during the first week. After about a month, the garlic will have mellowed considerably, losing most of its raw sharpness. The honey will have thinned slightly and taken on a rich, complex, garlicky warmth. Amish families and many herbalists recommend 1 clove of the fermented garlic or a spoonful of the infused honey at the very first sign of a cold or sore throat. Garlic is widely regarded in naturopathic medicine as one of nature's most potent natural antimicrobials. Raw honey brings its own documented soothing and immune-supportive properties to the mixture. Together, they're more than the sum of their parts. This preparation keeps on the shelf for months, requires virtually no effort, and costs almost nothing to make. Number 18. Dehydrated fruit leather, the homestead snack. Amish children do not grow up eating processed fruit snacks. They grow up eating fruit leather made from real fruit, often from trees right on the property, and it is dramatically better than anything made in a factory. Take about 4 cups, roughly 500 grams of ripe fruit. Peaches, strawberries, pears, apples, or any combination work beautifully. Blend until completely smooth. Add 1 or 2 tablespoons of honey or maple syrup if the fruit needs sweetening. Spread the puree in a thin, even layer, about 1/8 of an inch thick, on parchment-lined dehydrator trays or baking sheets. Set a dehydrator to 135 degrees Fahrenheit, about 57 degrees Celsius. If using an oven, set it to the lowest temperature and prop the door slightly open to allow moisture to escape. Dry for 6 to 12 hours until the leather is tacky but no longer sticky when touched. Roll it up in parchment paper and store in airtight containers. It keeps for months without refrigeration. Compared to commercial fruit snacks full of artificial colors, high fructose corn syrup, and synthetic flavoring, homemade fruit leather is a different category of food entirely. Kids love it. It's an excellent use for overripe fruit that would otherwise go to waste. Number 20. Milk kefir, the daily probiotic. Amish families with dairy animals, cows, goats, have fermented milk products for as long as anyone can remember. Kefir is among the simplest of these ferments. Think of it as a drinkable yogurt, but with a significantly more diverse population of beneficial bacteria and yeasts. The difference is meaningful. All you need are kefir grains, small cauliflower-shaped clusters of live cultures. Place 1 to 2 tablespoons of kefir grains in a quart jar and add about 3 cups, roughly 700 milliliters, of whole milk. Raw milk is the traditional Amish preference, but pasteurized whole milk works well too. Cover with a cloth secured with a rubber band and leave it at room temperature for 12 to 24 hours. The longer it sits, the tangier and thicker it becomes. Strain out the grains, which you keep for the next batch and the batch after that indefinitely, and your kefir is ready. Many naturopathic practitioners consider kefir among the most beneficial fermented foods available, often recommending it over commercial yogurt, specifically because it contains a far broader spectrum of probiotic strains. It works beautifully on its own, blended into smoothies or poured over granola. And because kefir grains multiply over time, you'll eventually have more than you need, enough to share with neighbors and friends. Pressure canned soup base, complete meals in a jar. The final item on this list brings everything full circle, and it may be the most practically useful of all 20. Amish families do not just can bone broth. They take it further by pressure canning complete soup bases, fully prepped, seasoned, ready to heat. On a busy weeknight, opening one of these jars means a real, nourishing, homemade soup in 15 minutes or less. Here's how it works. Start with a large batch of rich bone broth using the method from number 8. While it is still hot, fill quart jars about halfway with the broth. Then add prepped vegetables, diced carrots, celery, potatoes, onion, and whatever else suits your family. You can also add cooked beans, barley, or shredded chicken. Leave 1 inch of headspace. Remove any air bubbles by running a thin spatula around the inside of the jar. Process in a pressure canner at 10 pounds of pressure for 75 minutes for quart jars. Always adjust pressure for your altitude. What you end up with is a shelf full of nutrient-dense, zero-waste, ready-made meals that need absolutely nothing except a pot and some heat. For families with children, tight schedules, and real budgets, there's almost nothing more valuable to have waiting on the pantry shelf. And that is the entire point of everything covered in this video. Not one of these 20 methods requires expensive equipment. Not one requires special expertise or years of training. Every single one can be learned in an afternoon and genuinely mastered within a single season of practice. They reduce food waste, they stretch a grocery budget further than most people believe is possible, and they put you in complete control of what your family is actually eating. Here's a quick recap of everything covered today. Sauerkraut, sourdough starter, fermented dill pickles, water bath canned tomatoes, apple cider vinegar from scraps, Amish-style beef jerky, fermented hot sauce, pressure canned chicken broth, strawberry jam, kimchi, dried herbs for health and cooking, salt-cured pork belly, kombucha, elderberry syrup, fermented salsa, canned apple butter, fermented garlic honey, dehydrated fruit leather, milk kefir, and complete pressure can soup bases ready to go. Start with just 1 or 2. Sauerkraut and sourdough starter are the 2 easiest first steps for a reason. Once you see how genuinely simple and satisfying it is, the rest follows on its own. There's a momentum to this kind of cooking and preserving that is hard to describe until you experience it yourself. If this video gave you something useful, please hit that like button right now. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who want this kind of practical, no-nonsense homesteading knowledge. This is my channel, and new videos on homesteading, kitchen preservation, and food independence drop every single week. Drop a comment below telling us which of these 20 you were planning to try first. Every comment gets read. Until next time, keep it simple, keep it homemade, and keep your pantry full.